going on, Rotogrinders? Dean here. It's Dean7904 if you want to get all technical on me. It's actually 5:32 on the East Coast, 2:32 West Coast, 4:32 Tennessee time. So, of course, that means it's time for the flagship show here at Rotogrinders. It's called Grinderslive. Joining me today, not a big slate, but we're still rolling out a three-man booth. Why not? Andre is with us. He's back. Are we taking down more? We didn't talk pre-show. I feel like I saw a screenshot on the Twitter. Any big takedowns this week since we last spoke?
Yeah, I got a $28,000 win. I should have had more, but I'm kind of upset about it. I changed. When have I said to the audience, don't ever change your stacks? I changed my stack from a Milwaukee stack to a Boston stack, and I would have won 100K. So yeah, a word of advice: don't ever change your stacks. Just let it play out.
So could you enjoy that, or you're just kind of upset? You're supposed to be happy when you have a big night, but and then you leave something on the table.
I mean, I'm happy, but when you leave it on the table and you know you left it on the table, it's just the competitive nature of me. It eats at me, but you know, I'll get back to it. And I'll get it probably this month, hopefully.
Sure, why not? And any more live final seats you've compiled?
Not yet. Hopefully, going to get some tonight.
There you go. That is the plan. Will, did you have any regrettable $28,000 nights this week? I did not. I got to say. I think I'm actually a net negative this week. It's not been a good week for your boy. But how about yourself? Well, how are things treating you in your world and baseball specifically? How we doing?
I did have some regrettable ones. So you guys know I'm really heavy on Prize Picks, and so Charlie Morton is, absolutely rolling against the Mets, and his prop on Prize Picks was 34.5. I had Charlie Morton in so many power player props on Prize Picks. Would have been thousands upon thousands. And so Charlie Morton comes out in the seventh inning and gives up 3 runs and goes from 43 to 34. Take
him out. Why bring him out for the 7th?
Listen, do you know how frustrating that is when I look and I see my green? So like on Prize Picks, they just, if you hit the prop, if you're winning the prop, it's green in terms of over under. If you're losing or haven't gotten there yet, it's white. And so I checked. I said, oh, Charlie Morton is up. I said, okay, it's going to be a good night. Closed my app, didn't worry about it, went watched some TV. And I came back and said, what happened to all my earnings? or what should have been credited to my account. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because it's not like on FanDuel where you see how much you're earning at one time. You just kind of scroll through and say, okay, green. All right, yeah, we're good. And I checked my earn. I said, what happened? Turns out Charlie Morton gave up 3 runs in the 7th, and that cost me 34.5 and down to 34. And if you don't know about Prize Picks, like when you go power, let's say you got 500 on the line, that's 1,500 back. Well, imagine that like 5 times. It's like, okay. So anyway,
7,500, I believe, by my UCF math. Is that correct?
But so yeah, that was probably my worst night of the week. So that was very frustrating because, it's like it's in the bag. Just don't even bring them out. But they don't care about my fantasy earnings. So.
He's an old man, man. Let him chill. He pitched 6 good innings, got the quality start. Just relax.
Yeah, it is what it is.
Isn't Morton like 37?
And it wasn't quite that much on him, but, it was worth a couple grand. And, yeah, that was – and I just ran into some bad luck. The same thing with Aaron Nola last night. He's rolling, and then just, God, 21 Ks last night and still doesn't break 30. Anyway, just don't get me started.
The amount of runs that were scored last night, man. Oh.
Yeah, but last night I was okay because I had him kind of stacked in like one group, and then I had another group, and that group did really well. Like I took the under on Steven Matz yesterday just because I knew the pitch count was low. And I'm sorry to hog it up, but he was at like 30 fantasy points. I took the under. He ended up with 5. So it balanced out. Extremely profitable day yesterday. But that's how my week's kind of going a little bit. But even still, I'm up on the week. I'm done with talking about that. You guys know my affection for Prize Picks.
Hey, let me ask you this. Before we kind of dive in, and Andre, I'm curious to get your thoughts on it as well. And I've heard some people talk about it, with the sticky stuff going away and it's getting hotter, less and less pitchers seem reliable. And, and so you can sort of point to certain guys. And none of that has anything to do with like what DeGrom's going to do tonight, or because we'll talk about DeGrom in a second, obviously, or what Corbin Burns is going to do tonight, and those are the two best pitchers in baseball. Like as far as the stats, like as far as Ks, as far as K to walk, good matchups as well, especially for Burns. We'll talk about it in a second. But are you like changing your philosophy? Like me, like my brain is like, I want to lock in my pitchers. Arms are the most predictive. And Ohtani, we know Ohtani's volatile. We saw the volatility last night. He's not one of those quote unquote safe pitchers.
Don't tell me about it.
Are you changing anything on the fly here? We're not. Are we going to overreact to like a 2-week sample? But again, it should. A lot of the guys, the RPMs as far as the spins. Do you care about this stuff, or are you still just like playing your pitchers the way you normally play your pitchers?
Well, for me, one pitcher that I feel like possibly has taken a step back is Garrett Cole. I have been trying to kind of track it. He looks like a guy that's possibly taking a step back. At the same token, Trevor Bauer seems to be just fine. So I'm kind of just trying to take it, as it comes. We'll see what happens with DeGrom today as well. I do want to see what happens with Corbin Burns today, although the matchup for him today isn't quite as good. Quite as bad. It's a fairly easy matchup overall. But Garrett Cole is someone I've got my eye on because I do feel like maybe for him it's caused him some problems. Whereas Trevor Bauer does not seem to have affected him, I don't want to say at all, but as much. Lucas Giolito, maybe he's having some issues too.
One strikeout last game, I think.
Yeah. There's certain aces I've got in my head where it's like, okay, let's just watch and see. And, if they go 4 or 5 games and it's not, they can't figure it out, then I'm going to assume from here on out that, they've got to adjust, and it might take them through next season to figure this out, like an off-season throwing and saying, okay, I got to figure this out without the stuff now. And that's kind of going to be my approach. But those few guys I have identified to say, hey, maybe they're having some issues.
Yeah, you mentioned Bauer. He's got bigger issues than the off-field issues that not worth the getting into right now. But it's a whole thing. He may or may not pitch on Sunday. We'll see. We'll talk about tonight and tonight only. Your thoughts on Andre? And like you're somebody in my brain. Like you're more willing like to roll out with pitchers that that aren't necessarily good, but like goofy things happen. You can load up on bats. Do you have a general thought on that, or you're just kind of like whatever the projections say? I don't care.
Well, last week Kmart, never playing him again in my life. That was the worst.
Who was it?
Kmart, I remember from last week. I'd never play him again. You were right, but
he was great the next start.
Yeah, I know, but it is what it is. But yeah, like today with all the sticky stuff going on over the last 2 weeks, is especially like today, I'm gonna have my pitching pool normally, like if that wasn't the case, would be probably honestly just more DeGrom and Burns, and just lock them in and just have whatever else I get with the bats. But I'm gonna be a little bit more versatile today and have a little bit more different pitchers. Like I have like only 5 pitchers in my player pool currently, and I'm just gonna roll with them and take some chances and mix it up a little bit just to get a little bit of leverage on the field, because we already know what the 2 popular pitchers are going to be today. So just to try to mix it up and get a little bit of overexposure maybe to some other low end pitchers that I like and go from there.
Yes, that's a good segue. And my general philosophy, I think, is going to change a little bit, but not so much on this slate because I trust DeGrom and Burns so much. I think they're different than the rest of the guys, especially DeGrom. Like the difference between 1 and 2 is immense.
Yeah.
On this season, 44.5% as far as the K percent. That's just truly incredible. 0.69 ERA. The Sierra is 1.79. It's not like he's getting like this super lucky. He's just been absolutely incredible. Burns at 38.9% as far as the Ks. The next guy up is Gonsolin, not your roster, Gonsolin at 30.5. Then Anderson at 26%. So I used the bat stuff. I added a little bit of variance, and I ran 200 lineups on DK, and I said no more than 90%. No more than 90% as far as pitchers. I got 90% DeGrom. 200 optimal lineups. I got 66% Burns. I did the same thing with FanDuel. Of course, FanDuel, you only roster 1 pitcher. I got 85% DeGrom, 8% Castillo, and 7% Burns. So, Will, tell me why I shouldn't just play DeGrom and Burns and call it a day and just figure the bats out.
On FanDuel, you only get 1. So in my opinion, I think you just play one of those 2. Like I don't really want to venture on FanDuel. I will say this. if I was going to venture out on FanDuel today, it probably would be Ian Anderson against the Mets at 8,400. That's probably about as different as I want to get on FanDuel. On DK, man, the only thing is maybe if you want to play for some big bats, you try to get a little bit more creative. It's hard for me to get away from those K rates, man, and the matchups. I mean, now DeGrom's got a tougher matchup. I will say I think I'm siding with Burns over DeGrom because of the matchup, and it's got nothing to do with Atlanta scoring 20 runs last night. It's got everything to do with the fact that Atlanta's better than Pittsburgh. And what if they hoodwink us and DeGrom comes out for 80 pitches and for 10 Ks again, and now they're pretty much on equal footing. So I am siding with Burns over DeGrom for what it's worth.
Yeah, DeGrom last time out, 88 pitches. He's just super efficient too because he's not walking anybody. He's just striking people out like in 4 pitches essentially. It's been incredible. He doesn't necessarily need those 100 pitches, but I did want to mention this before, and I dropped the link in chat for the people. Yeah, what up, chat? Hit the like button, subscribe, turn on notifications, fire off some questions. We'll have these fine fellows answer those questions. Devin is going to compile them, throw them my way, and I will ask on chat's behalf.
Can I say one more thing about pitching?
Go for it.
So like on FanDuel where they're really close, like I'm still going to side with Burns, but like on DK, just hear me out. I think you can get away with fading DeGrom today.
Okay. Is Anderson your next play? Or you like Castillo?
Yeah, I think the Corbin Burns, like Ian Anderson combo might be good enough, especially if DeGrom is like still like on a somewhat leash, right? Like, and this is all speculation. I'm not saying DeGrom's a bad play. I'm not saying that. Yeah. I'm saying for 11-5, what if they hold him back to 80 pitches today? I don't think that's good enough for him to get 10, 11 Ks against the Braves. So I do think Burns Anderson, for me on DK, is a little bit different. It'll open me up so I can get some bats and make my money back from Houston for the past 10 slates and go from there. But that's just some tournament strategy. I didn't look at the ownership on DeGrom. I should have checked that. I got to assume, what is he? Is he in the 40s?
48 right now.
Oh, fade. I'm taking the fade at 11.5.
Oof.
Sure. For sure taking the fade.
I'm not one to, well, you know me, how I play. I'm not one to lock no one in, but today might be a day I might lock them.
No, I get it. I'm just, you know why I'm taking the fade, though. It's got nothing to do with his skill. It's got everything to do with the Mets hoodwinking us.
Well, I was going to mention this before you go ahead. I'm going to get your thoughts there, Andre. But before you go ahead, there was some weather issues earlier today. It looks like it's cleared up again. You see what Roth has to say on Crunch Time. I'll give you the most up-to-date update, 7 o'clock, right before the game starts. But as of right now, his most recent update in the article here, we went ahead and dropped in chat for you guys, yellow-green. So that's a positive sign. I was going to say, as far as the hoodwinking, I was going to say, like, maybe the Mets will be super cautious with DeGrom, although they haven't showed caution in certain games previous, this year. Whatever. It's a weird organization, but if there's kind of some weather issues or if there's an hour delay, they probably wouldn't bring him back. Like, why would you? But it looks like for the most part, yellow-green is pretty positive. A delay isn't out of the question, but isn't very likely as of this moment. It is currently yellow-orange in Washington. We know Washington's got a weird history as far as their postponements, so keep an eye on that. And there was a game in Philadelphia not too far away from Washington that was postponed earlier today. Colorado also yellow-orange for what it's worth. Andre, your thoughts as far as potentially locking in DeGrom, and I may do that as well because it's Jacob DeGrom.
Yeah, this just for some fact it's Jacob DeGrom. Like, I know that Atlanta has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys that in their lineup that have a 25K rate or above. Like, to me, that's all I need to see right there. And then we know, and we know they're all great hitters and they can hit the ball for sure. But just from that alone, it makes me love DeGrom. And DeGrom, I don't think has had a bad game against Atlanta in the past at all. And he's striking out righties at a 45.3% K rate that we have on our plate IQ that we're looking at. Granted, he's giving up a little bit of hard contact, but how many hits has he really given up all season? Not many. So it to me is almost. I'd rather lock in DeGrom and then get different at my second pitcher, personally. Like playing like someone like Valdez or Castillo, or even Ian Anderson. just to be a little bit different than the field and playing some different bats and different parts of the lineups and then fading DeGrom and risking that personally. And I don't like locking no one in. And to me, that's a big deal because I'm already getting him at 88%. So at that point, I feel like might as well just lock him in.
Freeman in the past, 60 at-bats, 16 strikeouts, 3 homers, 2 doubles for what it's worth. Swanson has struck out 12 times in 22 at-bats. Albies, 5 for 39 with 1 extra base hit, 11 strikeouts. Like you talked about kind of the past, they're in the same division, so they've seen each other a good bit. We don't talk a lot about, pitcher versus team, whatever, BBP we talk about sometimes, but reasonably big sample size there for Freeman and, does have 5 extra base hits. Acuna, no homers and 27 at-bats and 9 strikeouts. He has swiping some bases, and that's the thing with DeGrom. If you get on, he's terrible holding on runners. So if that's one way to get there with guys like Albies or Acuna, they're capable of stealing a base. But I'm much more on the DeGrom side than the Atlanta side. I get it for tournament reasons, and we saw last night, at least playing the Yankees. So that was one of the. I don't know. Everybody scored. If your players just got a solo, everybody got a solo home run. I think you lost, right? You needed more than that. The scores were just absolutely incredible yesterday.
My boy Ozzie Albies, though, Jesus, he earned that contract in 1 game last night, just crushing the ball.
We talked about on a previous pre-show Atlanta. What do they have? Acuna for 8 years, $100 million. That's just amazing. And I think it's Albies 7 years, $35 million. Good job for Atlanta.
It was a steal.
Both those guys are just, and Freddie Freeman's a free agent in the offseason. They have money for it, but I don't know. And supposedly they built that park for Freeman. Remember that they call it that the park's built with him in mind. But he might. I mean, he's going to get paid by somebody, even though he's in his 30s, I believe. Not going to get that Messi money though. Did you guys see Messi for? Soccer's really popular. It turns out around the world.
Kids are playing soccer.
Get your kids playing. It was Isaiah Thomas tweeted that out. I'm going to get my kids in soccer. Yep. All right. We mentioned Valdez in passing, kind of a big price there against Cleveland. We have Ramirez in the lineup. I thought he may or may not play today. He left yesterday's game, or he was dinged yesterday's game. That lineup's not great, but that's kind of a big sticker. And again, he's more expensive than Burns. What are we talking about? Andre, your thoughts as far as your SB2, if you're locking in DeGrom, who's your second most popular? It sounds like you have have shell lineups. You got to work some stuff out. Obviously, I'm sure you'll tinker after the show, but your favorite SB2?
Favorite SB2 is still going to be Burns for sure. But Valdez coming in last for me. Actually, since you touched on them, I want to get. I was going to try to get a lot more of them, but out of all the lineups, that's the lineup that scares me probably the most. Even though Castillo, he's been pitching, San Diego does too, but Castillo's been pitching a little bit better. So I kind of trust Castillo more than trusting Framer Valdez, because I know that at least some players in the Padres lineup can strike out. At least more efficient. Well, yeah, can strike out probably a little bit of a higher clip, just a little bit higher than everyone right now in that Cleveland lineup that we have out right now. So I like getting to Castillo after that more, or Ian Anderson then Castillo more, just because of the Mets. The Mets have not been they're still in first place, but they haven't been playing.
They are?
Yeah, I think they're still in first place.
Did not know that.
One of my coworkers is a big Mets fan, and he's like, I don't know how we're still in first place, but we are. So I'm just surprised. So I think they just strike out a lot, and I think that Ian Anderson can have a good game against them. They can go either way, though, honestly. So I'm gonna probably try to hedge the field with that too, as far as when it comes to the bats and play some Met stacks too. But I definitely like getting Burns as my second one, and then Ian Anderson. As you can see, my 5 pitchers are what I just mentioned to you guys before: DeGrom, Burns, Anderson, Castillo, and Valdez. With Valdez being the lowest I'm going to get to, just because that Cleveland lineup I think can get to Valdez, and his price point is, like you said, more than Burns. So realistically, it doesn't make sense. But just to get a little bit of leverage, I'll have probably him or Castillo more.
Yeah, so 5 acceptable to good starts in a row for Luis Castillo, who's a premier talent. It was one of the worst pitchers in baseball the first month of the season. And if you just sort of watched him pitch, you could tell it was just kind of sort of in his head, but he certainly worked his way out of that. Looks like he's worked his way out of that. And he does get an extreme pitcher's umpire as well tonight. Nice little perk for him. There is obviously some power in that San Diego lineup. Not a ton of strikeouts, but Grisham and Tatis will strike out plenty, and Myers as well too. But again, he's the same price as Burns on DK. Of course, in tournaments you can play the ownership game. Jump in here, Will. Who else is worth talking about? You heard about Andre talking about his 5 pitchers tonight. Are you straying away from those 5? Is there anybody else that's worth a head nod that you're going to get a sprinkle in? If you're running MME or something like that. I mean, Wainwright's been good this season, but it's a kind of a full price and it's in Coors. I don't know if I want to pay that. It gets ugly quick.
I would play Wainwright to get a little different on DK. I would absolutely do it. I do. I think he'll be okay. I'm not saying he's going to go out and get 30, but I think he could get 20 to 25. So yeah, I don't hate Wainwright, but that's probably about it. I don't really want to venture too far off the beaten path today. I think Dre and I on the same page. Which I just happen to be fading DeGrom because of the price tag, but the price tag and the possibility that he doesn't go a full leash, I just don't know. So I'm willing to take a risk and say, hey, if they cut him short, I got a chance to lap some people in GPPs. But I think I only have, let me see, Burns, Anderson. I do have a little bit of Valdez and Wainwright. Oh, last but not, I have a sprinkle. A sprinkle of Johnny Cueto, like a sprinkle. And that's it.
As far as the K matchup here against Pittsburgh, it's decent as far as contact. Newman's a good contact hitter. Frazier's a good contact hitter. But otherwise, if you stretch it back to last season, collectively 21.7%. And that's what we talk about as far as the DeGrom versus Burns thing. It's a better ballpark to pitch in, and it's a weaker lineup to pitch against there in Milwaukee. So, in Pittsburgh, he's on Milwaukee, obviously. Give us a summary, Andre. What are your you kind of basically talk about the whole time. Somebody's just tuning in right now. Give them the summary as far as your arms tonight.
Just play as much DeGrom as you possibly can, honestly. I don't mind, and obviously I love playing both of them together, but try to get different in some of your lines, especially if you're multi-entering, and go with like a Ian Anderson or Castillo ahead of time, and then switching maybe to Valdez in like 1 or 2 of your lineups. In tournaments, that's my strategy tonight. And I would recommend for people to do.
Bill, you want to add anything to that? And also, I feel like we haven't really given FanDuel much love. I know you play on FanDuel a good bit.
Oh yeah, FanDuel. I'm just only playing. Just play as much DeGrom as possible and Burns. I'm not even taking a chance over there. It's just you can play whoever you want.
Yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at too. And of course, are both of them going to falter tonight? I mean, I suppose it's possible. Goofiness is happening, but it hasn't happened to these guys really. It has to some degree. Give us some thoughts on FanDuel specifically, Will.
Like I said, it's Burns over DeGrom. I'm taking my savings just because some of the bats I like tonight are expensive, and not all the bats, but some of them are. And so if I'm going to be able to fit them in, I do really need the salary. So for me, Corbin Burns, he's kind of my guy tonight. If Corbin Burns doesn't have a good night, I'm going to lose on all fronts. Mm-hmm. And that's just the real. If he doesn't have a good night, my night's over.
Well, all right. Sorry, real quick. Well, on FanDuel, I'm going to have some Ian Anderson and some Castillo as well. Obviously, besides the other 2 that I mentioned. Just because looking at if Burns just plays that has 40 and Castillo gets like 35, or Ian Anderson gets gets close to it, for instance, same thing with DeGrom, you want to have that type of leverage in your GPP lineup. So I'm gonna have a little bit of exposure to both of those as well, but mainly going to obviously be as much overweight as I can on DeGrom and Burns.
It's a meaningful difference in price, and it gets you a different shuffle. It's not like a 2v2. You can get 4 or 5 different bats, and all of a sudden, and if Anderson stays within 15 points or 10 points, 1 homer, that's it. 2 homers, you're way ahead. Yep. As far as the difference of your bats, and I'm okay with that as far as tournaments for sure. Before we talk about the bats, I do want to mention myself, Grant, SBK, Keach. We're going to be live tonight watching the basketball game. Milwaukee's playing Atlanta, 8:30. Hang out with us, watch with us. We're giving away some league passes, my understanding, and not just for scores and odds, but also for Rotogrinders as well. We're going to be on for 2.5 hours. I don't know. Well, however long the game goes, it might get a little goofy. In the chat, just tell us what we should talk about besides the game. There's going to be plenty of downtime for sure. And anything you ever want to know about Grant or Keach, feel free. Devin, compile anything that's kind of sort of, or if you guys have any thoughts or any questions that anything you want to volunteer. Well, what should we talk about for 2.5 hours outside of like, hey, where's Giannis? He's not playing tonight.
Dean, listen, my boy Big T's in the chat. One of my good friends in the industry, and I wasn't even looking at the chat. I just happened to hop in there. My boy Tony, what's good, man? I haven't talked to him in a while. He was in, I think Tony was in Charlotte. I couldn't get up there when you guys had the live final.
Yeah, he was there.
But yeah, shout out to my boy Big T, man. One of my good friends in the industry. One of my good friends.
Noted Giannis lover, right? He's a huge fan of Giannis. That's my understanding on Twitter. Is that correct? Am I reading Twitter correctly? Feel free to confirm that.
Listen, you're gonna have to have a slide into the DMs if you want to talk to him about some Giannis. Slide into the DMs.
Oh man, who's winning tonight? You guys have a call? Who's winning the game tonight? Anybody?
I'm taking Milwaukee as long as Trey doesn't play. I don't think Trey plays. That's my read. I'm taking Milwaukee at home. Chris Middleton and Drew. I think they come out with the vengeance.
Are you playing the showdown?
I'm going to play the showdown because I got to prep for the fantasy that I got to go to next week. So I'll be in there playing a little bit, but I'm definitely going to take Atlanta tonight. And they're going to bring it home and end this series in 6.
Well, slide. There you go. Get rid of the juice. You guys slide into the DMs each other. There you go. Feel free to make a bet. Why not? All right. We're going to talk the hitters, obviously. We're going to go around the horn, and eventually we're going to knock out your questions there in chat. So, general Coors thoughts. I mean, is that and there's obviously Houston there versus Mejia, which is kind of sort of something interesting as well, especially the lefties. Do you have a general thought, Andre, as far as what you're doing with the Coors bats tonight?
I mean, obviously we know St. Louis is going to be probably the most popular team on the slate as far as being in Coors Field. So, and I don't disagree with that at all, but I'm also going to try to leverage the field a little bit by going with some Colorado stacks. They're not, I don't think the percentage on as a team on DraftKings is at 7.5, and on FanDuel is only at 5. So FanDuel's where I'm definitely gonna probably get the leverage and have some Colorado stacks for sure. But I'm also gonna try to look outside of that game too as well. Just some other bats, because I think there's some other teams on the slate that I want to try to get some exposure to, get more exposure to as well, and mix them in a little bit, and maybe have like the Coors bats, like sometimes my secondary stacks.
Yeah, the problem is like DK screwed up the pricing again. I hope you guys are sitting down. Well, so you can roster DeGrom and Burns and a St. Louis stack, and like everybody else sees that too. It's like it's right there. It's super obvious, and the ownership reflects at 32% on Goldie right now. Arenado 29%, Carlson at 29%, leading off tonight. Will, what are you doing with Coors?
I'm going to ask you, Dean. Let's see if you know my style of play. You tell me what I'm doing with Coors tonight.
You're crossing it out. The problem is
you already know.
So what
you already know.
It's a short slate. There's we can't play Pittsburgh. I guess you can. You can't play Atlanta. I guess you can. So like, is it Houston? Are you just going to say screw it, give me some Houston, or is that too obvious and you're going to the third or fourth team?
I'm fading Coors. I don't care. And Senzatella is terrible. I'm fully aware of what I'm doing when I take these fade spots. You got to think about what I'm doing tonight. I'm fading DeGrom and I'm fading Coors. If it works out, I'm crushing everybody. Yeah, everybody. And it's not so. But here's the thing: I'm only fading DeGrom. So simple. If I knew DeGrom was going to get 100 pitches, I would not be taking the fade. I would never fade DeGrom if I knew for sure he was getting the pitches. But I don't know, so I'm going to speculate on the other side of the field on this one, right? Of course, everybody's going to play Coors. Senzatella is pretty bad, but I'm looking at this ownership on a small slate. I'm not a big believer in St. Louis as a team overall. They got a couple big bats, but I don't feel like they're going to go out and score 20 runs tonight. The Braves did last night, and I didn't expect that from them either. But here's my point. I'm going to get some leverage on another team that I like even more, which is the Cincinnati Reds. That's my top team on the slate. I'm on a ride or die, with Cincinnati. And if it doesn't work out, guess what? I'm on to the next slate. But I'm going to have so much more exposure to Cincinnati than the field. It's going to be crazy. And that's how I'm going to win this slate. And by so much more, I mean I'm probably going to be pushing almost every lineup. Now, I'm not building 100 lineups tonight, but I'm all in on Cincinnati and Burns.
I think especially on FanDuel, those San Fran places are really interesting. We don't know the starting lineup just yet, but like Wade is 2.6, Yaz is 2.9, Posey 3, Dickerson 2.2, Crawford 2.8. He's just been awesome this year. Adam Merrick, he's been better of late. You know, he's had a couple of good games in a row, and he's not horrendous. He's fine. But, you know, that's a way you can get 4 cheap Giants. You can get some expensive bats, and you can get one of the stud pitchers. You can get yourself Burns. You can get yourself DeGrom. Just throwing that out there as far as the Giants. And again, Andre, I'm sure you see that as well too. You think they're kind of interesting, or any other stacks that are worth noting before we kind of go around the horn?
Who, the Giants?
Yeah, the Giants, especially on FanDuel.
I mean, the Giants, they are kind of interesting today. Someone I'm looking at, there's not a lot of strikeouts in that lineup. Well, the projected line that we have right now, and Merrill Kelly is bad against righties. So I'm probably going to have some exposure to them. I don't know how much though. They've just been playing well too all year too, so that makes me want to get just have a little bit more exposure to them. But I'm definitely on Will's thinking as far as going with like Cincinnati. I like them. They're not going to be targeted. Weathers is not that great of a pitcher. Well, he's not that bad of a pitcher, I should say, but he's definitely not good against, I think, what, righties. So, and I think Cincinnati just got a whole bunch of bats that can knock it out the park today, and I think that the weather is going to be pretty decent there too. So, and also playing like the Dodgers, which is another team that I like getting to a lot. I know some players are going to be on Corbin, so I like trying to use that as a little bit of a leverage play too, is for sure, and try to spend up on some of the bats when everyone's going to be on the Coors lineups.
The annoying thing about the Giants is a lot of their cheap guys, you know, their platoon guys, if a lefty comes in, you know, there's no assurance that like Dickerson's going to stick around, but these guys are cheap enough that I think it's worth a shot, and especially in a stack or even as a one-off, whatever. All right. Who has give us some catchers that are worth talking about. You know, super cheapy on DK if you want to make stuff work. Jason Castro, I think is 2.2 over there. You don't like rostering Jason Castro, but he's a lefty versus Mejia, and he's professionally trained to use that piece of wood to do some damage with it. He's not great at it, but he's fine, and he gets 4 at bats in theory. Again, you're not rostering Castro because you like him. You like him because he makes the stuff you actually like. Work under the salary cap. As far as catchers, Will takes.
Yeah, Castro's definitely on my list. Stevenson from Cincinnati, no secret there. I know he's 4,100, but he's a guy that's going to be on my list, and that's going to be about it. I'm not playing a lot of catchers today.
It's ugly.
I do like Omar Narvaez, but I'm not stacking Milwaukee today. But just at catcher, he's kind of one of those one-off guys. Other than that, though, that's about it. I don't think I'm playing anyone else.
I will say that ballpark there in Pittsburgh is terrible. It is worth noting historically for lefty power. It's basically an average ballpark. If you look at the Fangraphs data, lefty home runs in that stadium, it's like 98, 99, and that means it's like 2% worse than average. For righty power, it's like 91. That's why, the ballpark's bad in general, but it's much worse for righty power than it is for lefty power.
Will Crow is bad in general.
Yes.
So that's why I like Omar Narvaez. And I will say this too, maybe Stevenson, which I don't think the Reds are getting a whole lot of ownership, but especially on FanDuel, a guy like Stevenson as a catcher, I think he's about 2,500 there. Don't quote me on that. I'm going to check right now.
He won't be rostered that much.
And he's 2,500. We got him at 77%. So I think if you're stacking the Reds, try to get him in even on FanDuel.
Andre, what do you have as far as catcher, and then feel free to move over to first base?
Yeah, definitely for sure. I love Will Smith. Navarez is someone I like too. It's taking as a one-off, as Will mentioned before. One person that I'm gonna be a little bit. I know we have a 1% that I don't know why he just I sometimes get these feelings like English about players. So Austin Hedges, I think he's gonna hit a couple home runs today. That might be my home run call of the day against Valdez. So that's someone I like getting in as far as my Cleveland stacks. Just be a little bit different from the field. So, and obviously we got Castro, Stevenson, and Molina, who's not going to be popular as far as on FanDuel in them St. Louis stacks. So I would try to get to him. I mean, he's at coming at 3% right now. So I don't know if that's going to be updated or not, a little bit higher, but I'm surprised a little bit with that. But maybe we'll get into other bats. Then we move into first base. I'm gonna take some one-offs with like Pete Alonso. Just going against Anderson. I like a couple of. I like having like a Mets mini stack too as well, just to get a little bit of leverage on the field because I don't think anyone's going to really be playing the Mets. So having them like 5% of your lineups or 3% of exposures to them, I think is a great thing to definitely have for sure. And I love getting getting to like CJ Chrome as part of my Colorado stacks. I know he's going to be high on FanDuel for what I'm looking at right now, but he's someone I definitely like. And I might end up playing actually a little bit more Milwaukee than I think I'm going to play because Casting Hero too at 3% ownership on FanDuel at 3.2K. I think he's another great play too as well. And obviously Joey Votto, who Chief mentioned as part of with the Cincinnati Reds today.
Yeah, Hira, I think we set down the minor leagues. He was horrendous to start the season, striking out a ton, but we've seen the power pop up. Obviously he's had seasons in the past where he's had, shown plenty of power. 2 home runs in his last 4 games, kind of buried in that lineup, but the price is pretty good too, like you talked about. Will, first, and then let's jump over to second as well.
Yeah, first base. I do like, Max Muncy kind of as a one-off. Lefty, rough weather game possibly, we'll see. But I'm mainly just kind of sticking in my stacks. Votto, maybe some Yuli Gurriel, because I do think, as bad as Houston has been, trust me, we can't, and let me just debunk this right now. You can't predict hot and cold streaks. When you're in it, it's great, but you don't know when they're going to score 8 or 9 runs.
Is Big T still in the chat? Because he's going to get very angry. I don't know if he's still lurking.
Nah, he's not going to get angry. You can't predict hot and cold streaks, but they are real, right? And so right now, what does everybody think? Oh, Houston's cold. So what do? They don't play them. Then when they score 12 runs tonight, it's like, oh, I knew to play Houston. It's just, you can't predict it. You just take teams in the good spots and you roll from there. So that's kind of what I'm doing. So I do like Houston today against Mejia. I'm not afraid of Mejia. And I'm not that, and that doesn't mean he's a bad pitcher. It's a small slate, and everybody's going to be playing the Cardinals. So I'm going to try to get away from the Cardinals. So I like Yuli Gurriel. I like Muncy. And then, I'm going to play some Votto. And I don't hate, a couple of San Francisco guys. So, like, you can throw Lamont Wade Jr. in there at 4,100. But I'm pretty much done there.
I mean, I think the thing with hot streaks, like you said, you can pinpoint when you have all the data in front of you about 162 games. You can figure out, okay, it started here, it stopped there. But when you're in it, when you're in the thick of it, you don't know when it's starting and stopping. So I don't know how helpful it is or is not, but it's worth noting, right? So
right. You can't predict when it's going to start or when it's going to stop. But when it's in the middle of it, clearly they're on a hot streak. Like Kyle Schwarber hit, 50 home runs over a weekend. Like the guy was seeing the ball well. But guess what? When they stop hitting home runs, you don't know when they're going to just run again or be cold. And so, I don't really get into it. I just take the guys in good spots.
It might be over right now. Schwarber might be cold from this point forward, for all we know. Certainly possible. If you have anything to add there, feel free. We're a little bit behind there, Andre, but jump over to third base as well.
Third, well, I agree with everything he said for second base. Sorry. And honestly, I'm just loving Milwaukee more and more as I keep going on and looking into them more. So I'm probably gonna but they might be my second highest owned team of the night, honestly. But moving on to third base, I like on FanDuel. On DK, I like into some Manny Machado at 2% ownership. As either one-off or even in your stacks going against Castillo. I think that's a great play just to get away from Coors a little bit. I like also Colorado. Like I said, the Colorado bats. I think no one's going to be on that side. People are going to be on that side, obviously, but not as much. So I love playing some McMahon as well. Those are the two players I'm going to mainly be exposed to. Obviously, Jose Ramirez as well, and part of my Cleveland stacks, and even one-offs too, for sure. I think this is a position where you're going to probably either you can have them have a pretty much like me use a guy mainly as a one-off, which I probably will mainly do. But I don't mind any of these guys in the stacks, obviously, and being the foundation piece for your lineups.
I'm reasonably confident that Will Crowe is probably the worst pitcher on the slate. Biggest Sierra, 4.92, 2.17 homers per 9, the highest barrel rate at 9.7%, walks over 10% of dudes. That Milwaukee side is locked in for 9 innings. I know it's still Milwaukee, and there's not a lot of guys you like rostering. They're coming down from that Chicago series, which, whenever they're at home versus Chicago, it's like a playoff atmosphere. Half the fans are for Chicago, half's for Milwaukee. It's a lot of fun to watch. I'm sure it's a big deal for the city as well. But all right. Oh, hey, chat, like, subscribe, turn on notifications, fire off some questions. We're going to yield your questions in just a minute. Anything to add there, feel free. But, we are a little bit behind, so jump to shortstop if you don't mind.
Sure. Shortstop, I do think there's value in paying all the way up for Tatis today, just to get a little different. I don't think he's going to get a lot of ownership. Don't hate Brandon Crawford. And then, of course, after that, we're starting to get into stacked territory. So Kyle Farmer, even the 8-hole, 3K, he's a guy I'm definitely going to have on my list. Alejo Lopez, he's another one I'm going to have on my list. I'm Cincinnati's my favorite team. I'm on a ride with them. If you want to get a little different in your Houston stacks, which Houston really isn't popular today by any stretch of the imagination, you can roll out some Garcia at the bottom of that lineup in the 9-hole. I'm more than willing to sprinkle him into some of those stacks and kind of get some wraparound action. So those are some of the guys I'm looking at. Andre,
clean up shortstop and move to the outfield.
Like getting to Willie Adams, who's been hitting the ball pretty well lately. So I like getting to him, definitely. Theme here with the Milwaukee. Obviously, I don't know if you mentioned Kyle Farmer, 1% ownership on DK. Part of Cincinnati stacks. That's going to be crazy. I'm going to have probably a lot of him in my lines for sure. And Adman Rosario, I like getting to him a little bit in my Cleveland stacks. And then everyone else, like Francisco Lindor too, as a one-off. Just trying to get some leverage on the field and go with some different players that I'm not going to normally use in my stacks and be different from the field, just to try to get some leverage. And then for the outfield, obviously I like Nick Castellanos, who Chiefs talked about with the Cincinnati. They're great today, and I think he has a great chance of being a top player on the slate for sure. And I also like getting to Michael Conforto going against Anderson, righty on a lefty matchup. We talked about Lamont Wade already. I like him too as well. And then one other person, so I'm not gonna mention everyone out. I like getting to some Jackie Bradley Jr. too in Milwaukee.
All right. What else do you have as far as outfielders? And then we'll get to the questions. I have a bunch of questions I have to fire out for you guys.
Gotcha.
So what do you have for me as far as some outfielders for the people?
Well, I'm just going to roll with Dre. What I'll say, man, my boy Sean, he's trying to fight us in the chat today. Sean doesn't want to agree with anything we say. Sean, we're not here for our health, buddy. I'm looking at Plate IQ, and Mr. Weathers is awful. He's got an 18.5% K rate, a 4.73 xFIP. I don't know why we think Cincinnati is all of a sudden not going to score any runs today or bust. And I'm not frustrated with you, Sean. I'm just saying I'm not making this up for my health. Like I'm looking at the numbers, and it looks like Weathers is going to have a bad day. Doesn't look like he's going to do anything spectacular. So that's why I'm on the red. So just in case you guys need clarification, you know what I mean? So like I said, Sean, trust me, bro, I'm not frustrated. I just want to, give you guys an understanding of this is why I like the Reds. Weathers is not a good pitcher. So let's not make it out like he is, because he's not.
He's been very lucky, by the way. He's got
18.5% K rate on the season. He's not good.
88% left on base percent, 223 BABIP, a 247 ERA, but a Sierra it's 4.54. Regression monsters should be coming. But go ahead, Will. You were saying.
Oh, I'm done, man. I just we're good. We can take these questions.
Oh, all right. Let's go. Yeah, we have a whole bunch lined up. Let's start with the stacks. You guys know how this works. 1 through 5. Rank them 1 through 5. Will, you go first. Andre, you go second. If you really like it, it's a 5. If you don't like it at all, it's a 1.
Sorry.
Sean said they stink versus lefties, right? 50% K rate, 21%, 18%.
Slide in my DMs on Twitter.
14%, 0%. The only guys that stink,
lineups.
The only guys that stink are 28% Votto and 33% Aristides Aquino, and he's got a 462 ISO, and the guy's got an 18.5% K rate. He could easily hit a home run. So that's a lie, Sean. They don't stink against lefties. Look at these K rates and Plate IQ. And this isn't an argument. I'm saying pull it up and look. That's all I'm saying. So my top thing. You said we're going stacks, right? 5 is good, 1 is bad.
Yeah, I'm going to throw some teams your way. If you don't
Let's
like
go.
the team, say it's a 1. If you like him, say it's a 5. If you're somewhere in the middle, it's a 3. You can figure this out. Will, you're batting first. San Francisco.
3.
Pittsburgh.
1.
That's like a negative 0, 10,000.
Cleveland.
2.
Yeah, 2. That's where I'm at, Dre.
St. Louis.
I'm gonna say 4.
Yeah, I'm gonna give them a 4, and I'm not playing them, but I understand the matchup's fantastic.
They've been so bad this year, but Sensatello puts the ball in play, and I think they're gonna put the ball in play. It's a big ballpark and whatever, but everybody else is doing it too. I get both sides of it. All right, we got to speed things up, kind of lightning round. Hey, Chief, they're asking you specifically. You got any prize picks winners for the people?
Oh man, yeah, I like prize picks. Let me pull it up. I'll give you guys what I have. Hold on,
I'll give you a second. Right I'll ask Andre a question.
No, we're good. I got it right here. I'm taking over on Adam Wainwright. Keep in mind on prize picks, it's FanDuel scoring for the fantasy points. I'm taking over on Wainwright at 26.5. Taking over on Ian Anderson at 30. He's at 30 flat. And I'm actually taking the over on Framber Valdez at 34. I like Cleveland, but I still think Valdez gets there. So those are some of my main ones. But yeah, my main 2 are Anderson and Wainwright over. Over on Wainwright 26.5, over on Anderson 30. I feel like those are the lines.
Andre, I don't think he was in your 5. Thoughts on Cueto as an SP2 on DK?
He's not on my player pool. I don't like him today personally.
Thoughts on Weathers? I think we covered that.
Oh yeah, I don't like Weathers. Don't like Weathers.
That was Weathers, not Weather. Weather is of note. You guys are going to want to stay tuned for crunch time. See what Roth has to say weather-wise. There's definitely some stuff out there that is lurking. Let me ask this to Andre. Can I fade both Burns and DeGrom, or is that suicide?
That's suicide. Don't do that. I would fade one of them, and if you want to fade the higher on one, which probably will end up being DeGrom, I would be fine with that.
Keith Sweat versus Bobby Brown on Versus podcast tonight. Who you got, Chief?
Oh,
listen, I'm going with Keith Sweat because I don't know if Bobby Brown's going to be stable. I'm just kidding. Nah, Bobby's got some hits, man. Jeez, I'm gonna roll with Bobby.
You want to chime in that, Andre, or you're good?
Yeah,
you got Bobby Brown as well.
I got Bobby.
Because Bobby's gonna bring New Edition with him, man. Then it's gonna be over.
That's not fair. You can't have. He's gonna bring the whole group.
I'm just kidding.
I don't know the rules. I see people tweeting about it all the time. They get very excited. All right, so let's see. Oh, cheap players to grab with DeGrom's high price per cash game. So, how do you make DeGrom work? Is sort of the question. Who are your favorite cheapies? Anybody have favorite cheap players tonight?
Honestly, I haven't really looked at pricing, honestly, too.
I mean, on FanDuel, the Reds are, let me say, on FanDuel, the Reds are fairly cheap. You've got a couple of cheap guys on Houston.
And you mentioned San Francisco is not a bad team.
And here's the cheap stack of the night. And I don't know why I'm not stack the Atlanta Braves.
Well, I mean, you know why. You know why, but yeah, I hear you.
You get what I'm saying.
I hear you. Let's get out of here with a couple homer calls. Give me 2 or 3. Be as ambitious as you want to be. Who wants to bat first? Who's got a couple loaded and ready to go?
I have a couple loaded and ready to go.
Fire up.
Clearly, I'm going to take my boy Castellanos. On the other side of that game, though, I am taking Fernando Tatis. I'm for sure taking. I mean, he's been hitting the ball so well. Yordan Alvarez, that's an easy one. And then in the San Fran Diamondbacks game, give me Yaz today and Brandon Crawford. 2 for 1.
I like the Crawford call. What do you have for us, Andre?
Give me Jackie Bradley, Willie Adams. Give me Farmer, and I'm gonna give y'all one more.
There's some cheapies.
And you know, since people were saying that Hedges sucks, give me Austin Hedges.
I was hoping for like 4 Reds, all the Reds against Weathers. Stay tuned for Crunch Time. If you guys want access to Crunch Time, you got to get that. And all the tools we've been showing off throughout the show, you can use them at your own leisure. Get yourself 10% off. Not 10% off, $10 off. We're going to go ahead and drop that link in chat. Before you guys step aside and get out of here, feel free to hit that like button, do subscribe, turn on notifications. Crunch Time is up next with Roth, I believe Cheese and Tuttle. Take you guys right after Crunch Time, right after the first pitch. And again, you'll get that weather report, on the minute. Roth will tell you what's going on weather-wise. And 8:30, myself, Grant, SBK, we're going to be watching the basketball game tonight. Watch with us. Turn off mute Marv Levy. Marv Levy. No, Marv Albert. Marv Levy is the coach for the Bills. And I don't think he's no longer with us. Okay, I'm not ending strong, but we do have to go. We're up against the clock. Marv Levy? All right. That was baseball. That was Andre. That was Will. I was Dean. For Marv Levy, we're out of here. Holler.